come up with this idea. I wanted to get the young people involved in doing some stuff, and then it turned out there's several of us going to do some groups, so I'm excited about that. And the other thing is, and this is what we keep telling these because they're so young and, of course, still don't fully grasp time, the stuff we're talking about when we start talking about their life is not 50 years ago or 100 years ago or 200 years ago that they were going through. This is stuff they're going through today, right now, while we're standing here eating in this freeze and this chicken and this salad. This is things that these people are going through right now today. And it could just as easily be us 15 years from now. So that's where we're at on this. I have not used. She's asleep. Here we go. Wake up. All right.
All right. So here we have Jackson. Where is North Korea? Say it.
Between.
Yeah.
Between.
Say it, son.
China and Japan.
Good job. All right. And then we've got the capital, which I cannot pronounce. Pyongyang. Yes.
Kristen and Brandon are going to be
They're going to help us
tonight.
Good job.
All right. So this is just a little bit about Korea.
Go ahead.
A hermit country because they stayed almost completely isolated until the late 1800s.
Right.
They did very little trade with China and Japan in a few separate seaport towns, and no outsiders were allowed in. In the late 1800s, Korea was forced to open its border for trade purposes by U.S. and other countries. Japan started dominating its presence and taking control. Japan would rule Korea from 1910 to 1945. The opening of the borders and persecution by Japan opened the country up to hear about Christianity and accept it.
All right. So they were a completely hermit country up to when they were forced to open up. They stayed totally isolated and didn't deal with anybody else. So this is just what I pulled about their rulers. Up until 1910, it was Korean emperors. They had Confucius ideas or rules. They lived by a class system, and they were pretty much content for the most part with their isolated way of life. There was a little bit of Christianity in there, some Catholicism, which we'll kind of talk about and brief over here in a minute. But for the most part, they were unbothered by any of it. Then you had Japan come in, and you had a Japanese emperor. Honestly, from 45 to 48, I don't know. World War II ended, and they didn't start separating things until 48. They give really no indication. So apparently mass chaos with no good leadership. In 1948, they separated from North to South Korea, and the founder, Kim Il-sung, which is the grandfather of the one now, basically founded North Korea. So they decided to separate. We'll talk about that in a minute. He founded it. He ruled until 1994 when his son took over, and then his grandson, which is who is present now.
Neat little fun fact is that the family name there is the first name, not the last name. That's why all three of them are named Kim, like we're Bowens, they were Kims, but it's said first instead of last.
Yes, and that we talked about that the other day. I forgot about that. So, brief history of Christianity before we get into when they really got in. 1592 to the late 1700s, again, limited exposure. The only Christianity that came was through wars and diplomatic envoys. So people that went over to China and Japan for the little bit that they did mix. And when wars would break out, people would come in like to help the kids and the injured. And they was often Christians, and so they would witness a little bit. But again, they weren't really unhappy with, what they had, so it didn't really take off. 1784, Catholicism was introduced. In 1884 is when the borders was opened up to just a few seaport towns, not really, inside or anything. Oh, I mixed those up. I'm sorry. So in 1866 was the first time that very much interaction occurred. Robert Thomas was actually working as at the Bible society in China. And he found out that educated Koreans could actually read Chinese. So he wanted to get a Bible in their hand that was translated into Chinese. So he boarded, in 1866, he boarded an American ship sailing for Pyongyang, their capital. As the ship approached the coast, hostile Koreans threw burning brands on deck. The fire and smoke drove the crew into the sea. Taking his stock of Bibles with him, Brother Thomas waded ashore where he was met with blows. However, he was able to press his Bibles into the hands of his murderers before he collapsed and died. So that's how much it meant for him to get the Bibles into somebody's hand. But he died while he was doing it, but he did get some over there. Then we have Samuel Austin Moffat, and he was appointed by the Presbyterian Church to go to Korea. He started theological classes in his home in 1901, and he started what eventually split into the two different seminary schools, one in Seoul and one in Pyongyang. And he served there until 1935 when he was forced out by the Japanese, which is about when World War II started. Do what? Oh yeah. Well, somebody else should work this, Kristen. Really struggling here. Really struggling. So this is where it really started to get interesting. William Blair also came over as a missionary to Korea in 1901, and we had the Pyongyang revival of 1906. I'm gonna have to do a little reading because I could not do this justice to condense it. This is just really cool.
Beautiful.
So they're over there. You got the Japanese control. Korean Christians were placed in tense political situations, and the state of the nation was in chaos socially and every other way. They had finally just started getting missionaries in. And so in the winter of 1906, a Bible class met in the Central Presbyterian Church of Pyongyang, which to my understanding is still there. And I think if I pulled it correctly, this is a picture. Media is really hard to pull for this area because they have, which we'll talk about in a minute, a huge band on it. So you don't get much. Even if you Google it, it's the same pictures over and over and not a whole lot there. One Monday, the missionaries felt God's presence very close to them. And at the prayer service that evening, the whole congregation was taking into the presence of the Lord. After hearing a short sermon, people began praying out loud at the same time. Everyone felt a great urge to pray. A tide of prayer began to sweep through the church, and the voices of all the congregation merged into one single cry to God. One Christian after another stood up, confessed his sin, and then fell to his knees again, weeping and begging God for forgiveness. Employees confessed their sins to their employers and vice versa. Elders of the church asked their ministers for forgiveness. The ministers made peace with one another, repenting of their petty jealousies. Not only sins of commissions, but sins of the tongue and mind as well were confessed. People were so carried away by their urge to repent and confess that each forgot himself and stood only in the presence of God. Not even the missionaries escaped the tide of repentance and purification sweeping through the congregation. All human authority and power became as nothing before the face of God. Not knowing what else to do, the missionaries walked among the people, comforting those most overwhelmed, consoling them with a text from the Bible, and promising forgiveness. Seminary students present at these great meetings became carried away by the spirit of revival, and as young ministers, they carried the flame out into all the land. Everywhere these young missionaries went, similar gatherings were held. Villages and districts where no missionary had ever worked before were infected with enthusiasm when they heard the reports. Deadly enemies made their peace with one another. Stolen money and goods were returned. Past injustices were set right, not only between Christians, but with non-Christians as well. Many people were converted and brought to Christ by the honorable conduct of these Christians. The Koreans who had been affected by the revival took upon themselves the task of spreading the gospel through the whole Korea. Within a year, rising large sums to carry the message to regions where no missionaries had gone. As an aid to evangelism, they had 1 million copies of the Gospel of Mark printed, and 700,000 were sold within a year. They even sent missionaries abroad. One Korea settled in, now we'll just go with Siberia, to care for the Koreans living there. Others were sent to remote islands, still others to China. This revival marked the birth of the Christian church in Korea, a church that is spiritually still very much alive today, despite the shadows through which it has passed. So there was such a revival there, and there was so much Christianity there that they became known as the Jerusalem of the East. As time went on, and trials came, the pressure of the Japanese started to occupy their economic situation, and all of that started to get harder. As the Japanese took over, they started demanding that they participate in the Japanese festivals instead of the Korean festivals. And one of the things is they had to attend a ceremony at the Shinto shrine. Part of what they had to do was to bow down, and the people that had become Christians really had a problem with this because they didn't want to bow down to a shrine because they knew only to worship the Lord. So they tried to get excused and said that, they wanted excused on religious grounds. Well, they were told that this wasn't religious, that this was political, and so that didn't count. So many of the Christians just accepted this and said, okay, well, it's political, not religion. I can bow to this shrine and that's fine. And the principal of theological seminary also complied so that they didn't endanger the college's future. However, finally, one devout Korean minister decided not to attend, and they dragged him out to the ceremony and beat him to death right at the shrine to make a point. A lot of the other Christians fled to the mountains for many, many years and hid just so that they didn't have to bow down to the shrine. And this is where a lot of your Christian culture that you get there now, even after World War II, this is where they came from, was these families that ran and hid when all of this happened. There was about a 3-year respite between Japanese withdrawing and the communism taking over, which is that 1945 to 48 that we talked about. During this time, the Christians tried to come back. They tried to rebuild things. They tried to come back out of the mountains and come back in. They would meet before, so they started shutting churches down. They started persecuting people. So the Christians would meet before sunrise and often as early as 4 a.m. Cold or snow couldn't keep them away. Thousands attended the meetings and prayed in unison. There were no other examples in Christian history when as many as 10,000 people gathered for a single prayer meeting. Prominent North Korean Christians claimed that there had been meetings where 12,000 people were together in prayer. And that was after thousands of Christians had already fled to South Korea. Of course, there were political informers among these present, but who wanted to arrest 12,000 people at one time? So the government just started attacking leaders. Um, they tried to escape to the south and to get over to South Korea, but this was also extremely dangerous. If they were caught, many Christians were crucified. They were hung for crosses for days until they died. Faithful witnesses had their tongues cut out, and children who attended a secret Sunday school was deafened, their ears drums pierced by chopsticks.
Mm-hmm. That was very.
So that kind of gets us up to where we are. So you got that?
Yeah, so we've got World War ended in 1945, and then to the 48, there was with the split, and there was nothing much that you can find. The South Korea was mostly a Western influence. It was a very flourishing area, very Christian. Very just very flourishing and making it, with Christianity, and they allowed all of that to be shown, even just outside of North Korea. North Soviet was there is very communist influence, even though they wanted to focus everything on the family. It was still just very communist rule, and they were mostly ruthlessly atheist, ruled by the Kim family. The man that is still today in charge, Kim Sung, yeah.
That's the grandfather.
The one that is there now has done the most to consolidate the power to the family name, including removing his father and grandfather from a lot of the, literature, and a lot of, like taking their calendars. I can't remember the name of the calendar.
All the stuff.
Away from the, so it's all focused on him, not just even the family name, but mostly him.
They have like an oath they have to say and memorize.
Yeah, it was like the Jews calendar.
And he took any of their accomplishments, his grandfather and his father's accomplishments out, and accentuated his accomplishments in
and
that.
actually quit going too. They noticed it, or they noted in 2020 that he had missed several of the shrine events that he would normally go to honor his father and grandfather, and he's quit going. There's no longer any recognition of his family. And in 1974 is when they, I guess, founded or created the Kim Lusungizm, which is worship of the ruling family, the Kims, and it's their religion of North Korea. All citizens must attend a weekly self-criticism session and memorize more than 100 pages of ideological material.
They have 3 class systems. The core 28%.
20%.
Hold on. Do you want to stop in between? Okay, go ahead.
The waverings 45%.
You're fine.
The hostile is 27%. Christians and all
Descendants.
they will put 3 generations under surveillance.
The core 28% is the privileged, the working, the head of the working class, and the ones that have, the charge, and they have access to the best medical care, the best schools, the best jobs, and the most food rations. The wavering is considered politically suspect. They are suspect. They don't have, they don't have any power, they get, they're just the middle class. And the hostels are, mostly subject to the most difficult labor, the marginalized housing, and the lowest food rations in that area. North Korea has been at the top of the World Watch list for years, ranked the most persecuted country with the worst living conditions. In recent reporting periods, pressure has scored to the maximum possible in all spheres of life. This reflects the reality of state where the persecution engine and dictatorial paranoia is evident in all aspects of society. Christians they've gotten to where they listen to jammed radio broadcasts.
Wait. Turn your page back.
Did I skip one?
Yeah.
What did I skip? Oh, I'm sorry. Just kidding. Let's see. Yeah, I did. I skipped. Sorry. Christians in North Korea, historical Christian communities, those are the ones that fled to the mountains and were able to hide and keep everything going. They, even though most of them did die in the war, they were able to have a small percentage hide their faith and form an underground church. And that's who they are. And then the converts to Christianity, which many became Christians during the famine of the 1990s when they crossed the border to China and found help in Chinese churches before they, went back. If found or suspected to be a Christian, you were executed or sentenced, usually to life, to brutal labor camps. The women faced forced abortions, rape, and many are trafficked to China. They are that is mostly women that are caught leaving and going and trafficked around. The men and the patriarchal system must work in state assigned jobs only in order to always be monitored. They're responsible for the actions of their family, and the family is punished for 3 generations, like she spoke of earlier. Face economic hardship, physical and psychological violence to maintain control.
So on this, they are a patriarchal system,
Yes.
which says the men is 100% responsible for everything. So when she was talking about those classes a while ago, the core, the wavering, and the hostel, all jobs in China are state appointed, and so they tell you what you're going to do and what your job is. If you're in the core group, you might get to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. If you're in a wavering, you might get at least a decent job, but you're not going to have any movement anywhere. You're going to be stuck where you're at. And if you're in that hostel group, not all are in work camps, although most are, and that's what serves as your, I don't know, trash or welders or ditch, the things that nobody else, the hardest things, and they drive you all day. They do this also. they do this also because they're state appointed and you're working for state officials, which are in that core group, so that they can keep constant watch over you. And then, like she said, if they catch anybody, they'll keep 3 generations minimum and under surveillance, no matter if the other people does anything or not.
Back to the jammed radio broadcast at night. Yeah, and just because of you know them.
And that's what we were trying to tell Paisley is that, if they catch
Your
Pat for
lineage
being a
pays.
Christian, then they could murder, put in labor camps or whatever, Brandon and her
Her kids.
kids, or they could just have everything all the way down to her kids and under complete surveillance 100% of the time and leave them in that hostile
So it's
class
three
system.
generations past you?
Yes.
Oh, I thought it's 3 generations counting.
It's
Yeah, like-
well, I mean, yeah, I guess either way, but
I don't guess they have a
either
rule
way,
book.
they just keep watching them and keep them in that
It's
hostel.
still just as bad either way.
And
Right.
it says 3 generations. I don't know that you ever get out of a hostel
Yeah.
class.
Yeah. You got something to say? Open baptisms are impossible. Christians sometimes share Bible stories with their children as disguised as fairy tales until the children are old enough that they can understand and kindly be trusted into keeping that secret, because teachers, they would pressure them and ask them in schools. It starts when they're in the nursery, of if they see any evidence of things of Christianity and showing the love of God. That Kimusungism is the most yes.
So teachers are actually trained to ask pressing questions to kids. So
Mhm.
they ask them if they see their parents hiding books, if they see their parents doing stuff like this, like prayer, and kids actually get indoctrinated to report stuff to their teachers. So there's a story on one of the main missionary websites for North Korea where a 7-year-old girl discovers, and this is pretty crazy, but a 7-year-old girl discovers her parents have a Bible and she wants to report it to her teacher. So her parents tie her to a chair to evangelize to her to where she will not tell her teacher. And they evangelize to her, and then she understands and ends up leading one of the biggest churches in underground North Korea.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah, so imagine getting evangelized by your parents being tied to a chair.
Yeah.
Right? Like yeah, so I read that.
It's a new meaning of beating them into it.
Yeah.
100%, yeah, so
Especially when you've been pressured by your teachers
for
and
a
everything
sister
your
report,
whole life,
essentially, to report if your parents do anything wrong. So they
Mhm.
hide it from their kids, so you can't
until
really
they're
shepherd your kids.
trustworthy.
Yep.
And you're
Go ahead with
read
your
on
rule.
yours. Mm-mm.
You have to
Yeah.
come over here.
In March 2025, the country held the first national training event for children's union instructors.
Yep.
They were taught how to make sure children learn and follow the state
Ideology.
ideology.
So that's what they're
Stand up.
talking about. They actually teach not only the teachers
Children's
how
union.
to teach the kids to make sure that they brainwash them so that they follow this and report, but the way I understood it too, like other kids.
The other
So
kids would tell them like what's right and wrong.
so she might teach him or see him do something and report it, or she might make sure that he didn't step out of line and that she just kept repeating those same things to him, and they teach it from nursery to university.
They want the kids to follow the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And all church activities are banned except for tourist services to the Pyongyang state-run churches, described as props for propaganda, just so they can, slide under the radar for the things that, the United States and places have put in place to prevent that. At one point, they even avoided public arrest so as not to bring any attention to Christianity at all, good or bad. In recent your public
Executions.
this is one
Oops, sorry.
have become more frequent. And this is what she was talking about earlier. The anti-reactionary thought law of 2020 has worsened the Christian conditions. It was designed to eradicate the influence of foreign media, culture, and language. Especially your South Korea and Western culture, you were not allowed to have any type of, media, any type of smuggling, bringing it in, or distributing it of any kind. Your penalty was death.
And again, if you'll see, all this has gotten so much worse.
Yeah, this is
right
right
there
now.
because this is right now. I mean, once he took over in 2011, the dictatorial paranoia that he has of trying to make sure that people only focus on him has just, it's just huge.
Population.
Oh, she's gonna give us the kind of a basic rundown of
Mhm.
Korea and where they're at. This is their flag. Go ahead.
Population 26.57 million
People.
people.
Is Christian
Christian
worship okay
population
in Korea?
400,000
Christian worship
Mhm.
is in extreme secrecy and hiding.
1.5%
Christian worship is in
of the population is Christian.
So only 1.5% of the population is Christian, and I mean, obviously, they don't have a good way of knowing that because so many are hiding and under, but it's very, very, very low.
Majority atheist culture.
Mm-hmm.
And that Christian worship
Christian worship
is in
is in hiding.
Yeah, so they are extreme hiding. They're not allowed to have, like she said, the baptisms, no singing. They whisper. They hide in caves and basements because if they don't have to have anything proven either. I mean, it's just a point of suspecting, and any of these things we talked about could happen just because.
It's amazing to me how completely terrified the Kim family is, especially Kim Jong Un, with of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the one thing that freaks this dude out. He is so afraid that people are gonna worship God instead of worshiping Him that he keeps it. And I read one article talking about a neighbor that got caught with some Bibles and got caught being Christian, and I didn't go into the gory details or anything, but let's just say their neighbors suffered greatly because they felt like they didn't come and tell the government on them.
Mm-hmm.
So they, along with training the kids, they train everybody, and then if you don't report something you see your neighbor doing, then your whole family can be executed.
Yeah, and the grandfather, I thought this was really cool. I had a picture on one of my articles that I had, but the grandfather that started North Korea, and the father is the one that put the Kim Il Sungism religion in. But the grandfather that started it actually come from a huge Christian background. He was a Sunday school teacher at one point. He had a meeting with Billy Graham in 1992, I think it was. He never professed to be a Christian. I think that's kind of obvious, but he had all of that. And North Koreans that defect and get out and then come into contact with the Bible, they say that the doctrinal and the paperwork and the way that it's presented is just like in the Bible. Like his words are written in red. So the dictator's words are written in red, and you have to make these promises, and you're supposed to have. So they've almost written this religion very similar to what the Gospels were written because of, I guess, his background, and his mom and dad were devout Christians. And another little side fact, Billy Graham's wife actually grew up in North Korea as a missionary's daughter. And I thought that was really cool and interesting too.
So fascinating for me on this was the overwhelming Christian population throughout the early 1900s, all the way into these people taking control, and now we're down to 1.5%. I mean,
and it's quick.
It's amazing. And just across the border in South Korea is per capita one of the most Christian nations in the world.
Sending missionaries all over into the West. We watched that Jesus Game Changer, and I mean they talk all the time about sending missionaries to us to help strengthen, our Christian faith. And one thing that Brandon and I talked about, and I meant to write this down because I did not want to forget this because I thought this was phenomenal. Again, Prime's got that Jesus Game Changer, and I'm telling you, we're going to start it again. We're about done with the third season, and we've already said we're starting it over. It is amazing. But one of the things they was talking the other day on this third season, they're talking about persecution and interviewing people that's come out of it that they've talked to throughout the other two seasons. And the guy from, I think it was India, but I can't remember where he was at. But anyways, he was talking about the devil's got two options, or well, not two options, but there's two big options to derail us. And he said, most of the time through the Holy Spirit, you're going to be able to overcome persecution. If you're sitting there with a gun to your head, most people, if they're true Christians, are going to be able to get through that, not renounce God and walk away. But what can they not? And what does he get them with every time? Materialism.
Mhm.
And he said, the devil says, hey, you can have your Jesus, you can have your God, you can have your church on Sunday, and I'll also give you this job, and this car, and this boat, and this money, and this vacation. And before you know it, you don't even see church. You don't see God. You're working harder to get this comfort. You're working harder. Materialism is a bigger deterrent to Christian faith than persecution ever thought about being. And we want to talk about the persecution in these countries, and I don't want to live in any of them, obviously. But what we need to realize is that what they're getting us, what the devil's getting us with, and winning way more than they are, because the Christians that are over there, their faith is 10 times what the Christians are here in America. Yeah. And they're praying, like he said before, they're praying for us. And, you know, we don't have a gun to our head, but we have every luxury offered to us. And it's a whole lot easier than to take that than it is to keep looking to God and staying strong for him.
The cool thing that I found out going through this is the Christian population in North Korea, even under all this persecution, is growing. Mm-hmm. They've actually found out languages on how to pray in public against, like, those the people pull them over and try to get them for something, and they just reference it as the High Lord or the Lord Ruler. They're talking about where they think they're talking about the emperor, but they're really talking about God, and they can pray with people for sick people right in front of people without them noticing because of the way they're wording things. Mm-hmm. They're still worshiping God and growing. And to me, this stuff is always a real inspiration of, man, we could always do more. Like, these guys are meeting in caves. There's not like super official church services. There's not all of the freedom that we have here to reach so many people. I mean, we can, like we did the drive-through prayer, we can stand out in a parking lot with street signs and pray for people. These guys can't do that, and they're growing. Like, that's important and that's impactful. Like, think about it. Like, persecution is like a pressure cooker for Christianity, and a lot of times it'll just explode out of it. You see it in the Bible, you see it here. Like, Rome, where persecution was severe, and so that population's growing. It used to be a few years ago 200,000. So that's grown by 200,000 people. Like, it's growing. So be praying for the people in North Korea that are under this persecution. People in South Korea are trying to give them support the best they can, but that border's so locked down that they're trying to give them support and they're dying. And they're the ones hosting these radio broadcasts, the encrypted radio broadcasts. So, like, this is growing. And so we should be praying for these guys because they're out here in the thick of it every single day, risking not just them, but 3 generations of their family for Christ. So I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah, and the ones that are doing projects, there's a questionnaire which I'll give y'all since y'all are next. One of the things that we wanted to bring into this was, are some of us that are going to other churches, you know, are there missionaries in your churches that are getting supported in the area that you're researching? Of course, there is no known of any of that in North Korea, or they would be dead. So the only help that they do get is the bordering countries of China, I think some, and South Korea. Open Doors, World
War L.
No, not the World Watch List. Open Doors, and I don't know. There's 2 or 3 organizations. Yeah, then they do what they can to help. So, you know, you can support these kind of organizations that goes in and does things. You know, obviously we can't come up with a missionary or a mission project to go into North Korea, but there's, you know, the Open Doors and stuff like that that can do things. So, and hopefully that some of these others are doing countries that aren't as locked down as North Korea, obviously. And so I'm hoping that some of them can bring in some images and some worship songs from these countries that they're doing. Again, you can't find any media on North Korea. You ain't gonna find anything.
No, I actually did a deep dive on North Korea not too long ago, and fun fact about their tourists. So if you ever like tourists in North Korea, they will actually pay people to go into like grocery stores to look normal, like they're shopping and stuff, even though they're not, just so that it puts on the appearance in North Korea's.
That's what they do with the church too.
It's posters to windows and storefronts. It looks like rolls of canned food, and
it's not in there.
Under party, they're not eating, and it looks like the grocery stores are all full and rows, but all it is 3-dimensional pictures that they put up, and you got these big white cities that are completely empty, you know.
Yeah, and if you pull the images up, you get beautiful. I mean, especially the capital city. It's got museums and it's got big buildings and it's got skyscrapers, and those are the pictures you see because that's all you can find is those kind of pictures. The church services are completely state-run and staged. I mean, it's no more than a play for the day for tourists to go through and see what's happening so that they can say we have some religious tolerance or whatever. But you're not allowed very many places. It's very restricted where you're able to go when you get there, and where they do allow tourists to get is very staged to make it look normal.
Which they
that.
do because they hold that to only a couple of cities, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
You're assigned, if I remember right, a detail that you're with.
That's with you
a
all the
security
time,
detail.
from what I understand
You
as
tell
well.
them
Yeah.
go, or that security detail tells you.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying. They only open the tourism to a town, a city or two.
Their television is restricted to like very few channels, and it's all about Kim Jong Un.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Whatever.
And if you just search images of North Korea, all you're going to do is find one image after another of him, one way or another, and he's always laughing, and he's always, or a lot of times he's laughing, always surrounded by military, just about. But like you can scroll through 100 pictures, and at least 85 of them is going to just be of
You're
something
talking
with
about
him.
the pages of history and stuff around. They have like in their books like that he invented like basic foods like cheeseburger.
Yeah.
It's an American food, but
He'll put that he invented it, and that's kind of what she was saying about
Yeah,
changing
he
the
just
stuff
removed
around.
to
So.
point directly towards him.
Well, I would say if y'all have questions, but we probably wouldn't be able to answer them. So. We've extorted everything we've got in our heads that we read. Well, thank you.
Good job, y'all.
I know he.